1. So I'm 20, female, working an afternoon shift as a customer service clerk, when I get a phone call at around 5:30. I answer it, give the standard, "Hi, this is the place. How can I help you?" The lady on the phone was pretty nice. She wanted to speak with someone in our floral department so she could get a corsage for some event on Saturday, which was 2 days away at this point. I politely tell her that our floral department is closed. The department usually runs from 9 to 5, but due to staffing issues, some days the operation hours are shorter. These hours are posted online. So she would have to call back tomorrow at around 10 a.m. She says that's alright, and wanted to know if the florist would actually be able to get a corsage ready on time. I replied, I'm not actually sure, but they work pretty fast over there, so they might be able to get it ready on time. You'll have to ask them when you call. She says okay. We both say bye, thank you, hang up. About 20 minutes later, a lady walks in with her younger son and comes up to the customer service desk. I greet her and ask how I can help her. She asks me where the floral department is. I point her in the right direction and, admittedly, fail to mention to her that nobody is over there to assist her should she need it. However, we are able to call over a person from a different department for customers who need help with blowing up balloons or placing flower arrangements. Anything basic, really. The lady's son comes over to me a minute later, asking for help in the floral department, so I page the other department to come help her. When my co-worker from the other department goes over to help them, it turns out he can't help them with what they need, and he directs them to come back to customer service. So the lady and her son come back to my desk, but I'm not up there as I'm helping one of my checkers with a customer's order. My self-checkout attendant happens to be at the desk. Customer service and self-checkout are the same desk at my store, and starts talking with them. I immediately make my way up there and catch some of their conversation. The lady is talking about how she needs a corsage made for an event on Saturday. As soon as she says this, something clicked in my head and I recognized her voice as the person I spoke to on the phone with. Plus, I think it's pretty far-fetched that two different ladies would be asking for a corsage on Saturday at this time, at this place. So I ask her, "Were you the lady that called earlier?" And she just stares at me. Doesn't say anything for probably a solid minute, which leads me to believe that it was her. So I continue by saying, as polite as can be, because I said the florist already left and you would need to come in tomorrow morning. She continues staring, then screams, "I wasn't the one who called. Are you seriously saying that nobody in this store can help me?" And I respond with, "Yes, that's what I'm saying. We already called our co-worker from another department who said he couldn't help you. If he can't help you and there's no florist, then you'll have to come back tomorrow." My self-checkout attendant was also explaining this to her. The lady looks at me and screams, "You're quite rude, you know that? We came here from a different store because they said you guys would help us," which is funny considering all the stores have the same florist hours. Then she looks at her son and says, "This is ridiculous, we're leaving." And she stormed out of the store with her son mumbling, "Sorry about that, thanks for your help," on his way out. What's even funnier is that later that night we got a call from the store that she said she came from. The phone only rang once before they hung up, so we didn't even get a chance to answer, only to look at the caller ID. It left us wondering what happened at that store with her. 2. I went to Walmart to get my medication and my children's medication. I had run out of meds 2 days ago, and I have PTSD and several other issues from trauma in combat. Don't thank me, I work for a PMC. Greed not honor was my motto. I'm a psychopath while medicated, but a true asshole when not medicated. I'm kind to people doing their jobs and workers. It's everyone else that I don't care for. I'm talking to an employee about the Oculus because I heard you can play Among Us in VR, and my kids love Among Us. I pick up 2 with the upgrades and longer cables, and he rings me out there. I head over to Pet's department, just a little ways down, looking for a big bone for my English bulldog to munch. Yes, we are talking about good old Spike, who will ignore it and leave it for me or my wife to step on in the middle of the night. Worse than Legos. I pick up a large bone, most likely formerly attached to a cow, and compare it to another looking for meat content, because the more meat, the more time Spike will eat it before losing interest. Someone then grabs my right arm to spin me around. I have no hearing on my right side and only 14% on my left, thanks explosive device. Also, being grabbed from behind is a huge fight-or-flight trigger for me, which always gets my legs shaking and heart racing. I come face to face with a toad of a woman who starts whining about my customer service, as I'm a manager and should know better, and how I need to grab a pet carrier off the top shelf for her. Now, I love confrontation and absolutely love arguing, but I know I have 2 large bone-made clubs in my hands and I need to put them down before I move forward. I put both bones in my cart and turn back to Karen. Excuse you? One, I don't... Excuse me? How dare... Shut your bloody mouth, Karen. I'm speaking and you're listening. I don't fucking work here. I'm mostly deaf, and you don't get to grab random people, and I don't give a fuck about serving you. It's in your best interest to go away at this time. How dare you call me Karen and talk to me like that? I'm going to have you fired and maybe call the police with how you just talked to me. You're the one who assaulted me, I say, lifting my right arm, which is absolutely covered in scars, and waving it around. Her eyes followed like a dog begging for a treat. I clearly had no idea who you were as you were standing to my right side. I point to the right side of my head and remove my prosthetic ear again, waving it around. She goes from white to green and toddles off. I laugh to myself and make my way to the bathroom to reattach my ear. It's held in place with magnets, but it takes a mirror to make it look right. When I come out, there's quite the gathering. There's the store manager, the actual store manager, as his picture is in the front of the store, electronics associate, Karen, loss prevention, found out after she introduced herself, and a worried assistant manager. That's him. He went in the bathroom with something in his hands after threatening me in the pet aisle.
Is that true, sir?
Yes and no. I did bring something in the bathroom, but no, I didn't threaten her. Loss prevention goes into the bathroom as we wait, comes out and says it's clean.
What did you take into the bathroom?
My ear. I again remove my ear and turn my head, exposing the scarred whole lizard ear. Manager's face goes white. Electronics kid smiles and walks away. Assistant manager gasps and dips out. Loss prevention grins and laughs. Manager asked what happened, and I explain I can't talk about it, thinking he's talking about the ear. Karen tries to butt in, but I shush her, complete with the Austin Powers hand gesture. Loss prevention rolls up her pant leg to show a prosthetic leg. Iraq convoy. I wiggle my ear. Mexico. Classified. The store manager cuts into our side chat and directs us back on topic.
What exactly happened in the pets department?
I explain my side. Karen claims I threatened her with the bones. Store manager has us wait there as loss prevention goes up front to check cameras. A couple minutes later, and she returns. Would have never guessed her leg was prosthetic. I have an instant crush. Loss prevention explains that the video shows me looking at bones, get pulled around, yelled at. I calmly put the bones away and let her rip. But no audio and no physical gestures that imply threat. The only crime was Karen grabbing me. I turn to Karen and grin.
Would you like us to call the police, sir?
Karen is as white as a ghost at this point. Ma'am, are you going to continue grabbing random people at stores and bossing them around? No, I'm sorry. No, I think she learned. Manager asks Karen to leave her cart and exit the store. He's not trespassing her, and she's welcome back, just not today. She leaves without a fuss. I grab my cart and walk with loss prevention and the manager to the front. Shake hands and leave. Karen is in her car a couple rows over, crying her eyes out. Or was when I started typing this. 3. I've worked in the meat department at grocery stores for over 15 years. Many years ago, at one of the stores, we had a policy that around 1 or 2 p.m., we would go through the sales case and grab any meat that was expiring the next day, and mark them all down to around $1. There was one regular customer we had that our clerk called the meat bully. He was an older gentleman who would arrive in the early afternoon and watch us like a vulture until we brought the reduced product out to our clearance section, and then fill his shopping cart with almost everything. For some reason, he never grabbed any lamb or veal. We had a number of complaints from other customers about how there's nothing left in our reduced section, but also because Meat Bully would push others out of his way to get his precious cheap meat. There was another regular customer, Farm Woman, an older woman who lived on a farm, who one day decided to do something about our clearance problem. As I was putting reduced prices on the product, I noticed both Meat Bully and Farm Woman waiting and watching me, and giving each other the stink eye. Once I was done, I brought the rack out and put the cheap meat into the sales case as fast as I could. When it was all out and backed away, the two of them went right at it, pushing and shoving each other, grabbing whatever meat they could and tossing it into their carts. After a minute or two, the clearance section was wiped out, and they walked away to continue their shopping. Over an hour later, farm woman came back and put most of what she grabbed back into the clearance display. I came up to her and asked, "Is there anything wrong with this? Did you change your mind?" She smiled at me and answered, "Oh no, there's nothing wrong. I just didn't want Meat Billy to take all your cheap stuff. This way everyone else has a chance to buy some." I sighed for a moment and smiled. "I appreciate the thought, ma'am," but then grabbed a couple of packages she had put back. As I suspected, they were room temperature. I continued, "But we can't sell this meat that's been unrefrigerated this long. Unfortunately, we'll have to throw this all out." I'm sorry," she muttered, frowning as she realized that her good deed had been for nothing, walking away glumly. Thankfully, farm woman never tried that again. A few weeks later, the company would change our clearance policy to where we didn't reduce the prices so drastically, and though Meat Billy continued shopping there, he wasn't nearly as aggressive. 4. I was working in a high-end food cooperative in New England. Our fresh and local turkeys sold for nearly $3 a pound, and we sold around 400 turkeys every November. It was the night before Thanksgiving, an hour before the store's closing, and I was alone, shutting the department down for the holiday since we were closed on the day. The phone rings, always a bad thing this close to closing time, and I answer it with, "Happy Thanksgiving, Meat Department." To hear a man yelling, "Hello, is this Meat? I want to talk to Meat." "Yes, this is the Meat Department." "Well, I paid good money for a fresh Vermont turkey, and this is frozen solid." I'm puzzled, since we don't sell frozen turkeys. "I'm sorry to hear that, but our turkeys come fresh, not frozen." "Well, it's too big for the fridge, so I put it on the porch to keep, and now it's frozen and won't defrost in time for tomorrow." Realizing he's put his bird out in below freezing temperatures, and it was his own fault it froze, I still offer to exchange a same-size bird if he can bring it in before closing time. "I can't do that. You people, you've ruined our holiday. The co-op needs to take responsibility." Again, I offered an exchange, but he hung up on me. I wrote a note for the manager to see first thing Friday morning and finished closing, to go home and cook my cheap supermarket turkey that I began defrosting in my fridge on Monday, like all the regular, unentitled people. 5. My story begins with me taking my friend out to lunch. My friend is a trans man, and at the time of this story had just begun their transition, and had been struggling with feeling anxious and unsafe in public. I myself am female, and with my friend looking very butch but still physically female, we can kind of look like a couple when we're out together, and this may have been the reason that this happened to us. I decided to take my friend out with me so that I could try to help him start feeling better about being in public. I hoped that with me there, he would feel safer seeing if he was alone. We decided to eat lunch at McDonald's, and ordered at the big computer screens to minimize the amount of socializing with strangers would have to do. We sat at one of the new light-up tables so my friend could have something fun to distract himself with if he felt anxious. These tables have a long bench on one side, and chairs on the other, and is actually one big table, the one that lights up, and a smaller table at the end. As soon as we sat down, I noticed a woman at the back of the restaurant staring at us. I didn't think much of it, since we had just sat down, and maybe she was just people-watching, as I am prone to doing too, or maybe she was just looking out the window that was next to us. Either way, my friend couldn't see this since the woman was behind him on the other side of the place, so I didn't say anything and started to eat and chat. After a few minutes, I noticed this woman move to the table directly behind my friend and stare out the window. Okay, maybe she just wanted a better view outside, or at least she wasn't staring at us anymore. So I again didn't say anything and continued to enjoy my lunch with my friend. We both finished our burgers and were starting on our fries when the woman moved again, this time at the small table right next to my friend, and she was looking at us again. Now, I was officially freaked out and nervous. The restaurant was mostly empty, and this woman had chosen to sit right beside two strangers and just stare. I had my purse in the chair next to me, and I was nervous that this woman may be trying to get close enough to snatch it. I had no idea what her motives were, but I didn't want to scare my friend. I was hoping that he was distracted enough to not care that there was a stranger sitting next to him. I also didn't want to move my purse or suddenly get up and give this woman a reason to confront us. So I continue to try to act cool while staying aware of her every move. Then my friend texts me that this woman is making him nervous. I text back that I am nervous too and ask if he wants to leave. He replies yes, so I nonchalantly put my phone in my purse and start gathering up our things as though we're simply done eating and leaving so that I don't alert this strange woman that we're running from her. My friend, however, shot out of his seat and power walked for the front door. I threw away our trash and followed him out to the car, not looking back at all. Once in my car, though, my friend tells me that he noticed a woman come outside right after we did. As soon as our path was clear, I pulled out and we left. I have no idea if this woman was trying to get close enough without us noticing to take my purse, or if she was trying to tell if we were a gay couple. Hey everybody, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to Adventures in Fast Food and Retail, episode 138. And thank you very much to everybody who allowed me to use their stories in this video. If you enjoyed the video, then please do like and subscribe. Ooh, you know, that story number 3 there, well, that gave me flashbacks to when I used to work in retail. It was one of the most annoying things in the world when you've been asked to do the markdowns, sometimes by a supervisor whose job it is to do the markdowns, but they've asked you to do it. So anyway, you're doing that, then you've got the people hovering around you. I mean, calling them vultures sounds insulting, but it's kind of accurate, because they want that sweet, sweet meat. Anyway, I do remember we also had a guy, our guy never assaulted anyone. I mean, that really should get you kicked out of the shop if you're shoving people out the way. But the guy, you may have heard me mention it before, he used to come into the shop and he would actually pretty much clear the reduction shelf, not just to meet whatever was on it, really. And he was always friendly and that, and there were certain things he wouldn't take, and I'd say, well, you know, such and such a thing can actually be frozen quite well. Like, you can freeze cheese. Hell, you can technically freeze milk as well if you want. I've never tried freezing milk, although I have frozen cheese, and it still actually is very good for making like a cheese sauce and things like that, I found. And so he was always very happy like to learn that, and even so he'd take a lot of stuff. However, he was one day caught. What he'd be doing is he would come in, see that's not cheap enough for me, but this other item is, so he'd take the sticker off the cheaper item and put it over the more expensive one, which, unless you were the person who just did the reductions, you wouldn't know it wasn't meant to be sold at that price. And technically speaking, that is actually theft. So he got his ass banned. I remember there was the store I worked in. There was 2 stores in that street, like 30 seconds walk away from each other, a minute if you were taking your time. And the one I worked in was the larger one. There was a smaller one. They were owned separately at one point, but eventually they were both bought by the same company, which meant staff would occasionally be asked to fill in. And at one point they had the same very incompetent manager running both shops. So that meant a lot of the time I'd get sent up to the other shop, which I didn't actually mind, because although it was much smaller and a lot more cramped, it did mean I could get away from certain asshole Karen-type supervisors. In the other shop, there was only one of them, but it felt like more than one, that I didn't really want to work with, so I'd get to go up there for a few weeks just to get away from them. And that was fine. However, what I did notice when I went up there, I'd see all the people that had been banned from my shop for shoplifting. And he walked in one day and he was... If you've ever heard the expression taken aback, that was pretty much the reaction I got from him. He recognized me, but I could tell as he went and did his shopping, he was wondering if I recognized him. And I did, but the way I looked at it is, you haven't done anything to be banned from this shop yet, and although if it was up to me, you'd be banned company-wide, but I'll keep an eye on you. And so that's pretty much what I did regarding him. And I did eventually see him sneak back into the larger shop at one point, when the smaller one eventually closed down. Which was sad, because, like I say, I did actually come to enjoy working in the smaller shop more. Anyway, do I have any birthday shoutouts today? I should probably check that. I don't think so. I think most of these are in October now. Okay, that's fine. No more until start of October, if you're near the end. That's all for now. Okay, and with that, I'm going to head off for now. So until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourself.